maybe Charles and Storm come back the next episode. That would be really cool to see that my two powerful ass mutants come back. Charles with his little telekinesis, you know, pointing, and Storm heeding my command wins attack, you know, that type of shit. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston. Today we were talking about X-Men 97 episode 7, Bright Eyes, the last episode before this 3-arc finale that we're about to get over the next 3 weeks, this 3-episode arc, and it's going to be super fun. The last 2 episodes have been very impactful on our X-Men, and shit has been going down, and now we get to see some of the repercussions from that. Also, check out this shirt, y'all. I'll give you a little stand. Woohoo! Check out that fucking thing right there. Hey, mon ami, remember it, right? Like, that is a badass shirt. I love the color, too. I was gonna get black, but if you guys have been watching the channel, I have so many black t-shirts and grays, and I was like, you know, I got some blue, you know, I got some, look at how that tattoo pops with that color in the background, you know, I love that. So, got me some Gambit shirt, and this episode is called Bright Eyes, and that is from a quote from the original series that Rogue says, referring to Cable. So maybe he'll show up in this episode, who knows. But to start out this episode, we got a tearjerker of Gambit's funeral, and Nightcrawler is giving his eulogy. Also, I want to talk real quick. This poster, oof, you know, this yellow shit swirling around Gambit and Rogue, and they're about to kiss, but it looks like Gambit's fading away from her. Poor Rogue this episode. She really, you know, is hurting and grieving in a lot of ways. You know, she lost not only Gambit, but she lost Magneto in that terrible tragedy on what happened on GENOSHA. You know, so now we're getting to see some of the aftermath of what happened in GENOSHA, and it's very sad. But, you know, it just starts right out on this picture of Gambit flipping cards, and it's raining, and they're all gathered around a funeral together. And, you know, they're not all there, because Jubilee starts crying because Rogue isn't there, right? But Nightcrawler gives the eulogy, and that was kind of touching. I was like, ooh, Nightcrawler, my boy. But, you know, he has, like, a background in, like, the church and stuff like that, like we saw in X2. You know, he was in a church when we second saw him. You saw him with Jean Grey and Halle Berry Storm in that movie. But we cut from Jubilee getting upset at Gambit's funeral and being like, why is Rogue not here? She loved him. And Logan, like, hugs her and comforts her, and he's like, everyone grieves in their own ways, you know, and Rogue's got to figure that out for herself. And now we cut over to Rogue smashing and unhinged, and she's smashing things like she's the Hulk almost. She's flying, she's smashing tanks, throwing them, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is really reminding me of the Hulk. And I think that was on purpose, because all of a sudden it cuts over to someone we know from the Hulk, Colonel Thaddeus Ross, I believe, voiced by the same guy that voices him in What If. But we have a clip here of Ross and Rogue coming in hot to get information out of him. Let's watch that.
Gentlemen, need I remind you that we're standing in the same place built to hold the Hulk? Our intruder is an unhinged mutant from the swamp. She ain't no...
Unhinged mutant from the swamp, huh?
They say breaking into prison was easier than breaking out. Now, I know you know why I've come a-knocking. Where are Harry Gyrick and Bolivar Trask?
Thought your kind were the good guys.
You killed those, Sugar. Now, you get me.
Oh, Rogue this episode had me on the edge of my seat. I was like, damn, Rogue is not only powerful, right? She can smash things like the Hulk, and he even says it. He's like, this is the facility that is built to hold the Hulk. This is a mutant from the swamp. She's not gonna... Boom, busts in, and then she grabs him by the throat. He's like, I thought you mutants were supposed to be the good guys. You killed all of them. Now you get me. Woo-hoo! Come on, mon ami. What you want, Thaddeus Ross? Oh, man, as soon as I saw his little name tag of Ross, I was like, oh, what? I was like, okay, hold on. What's up? You know, but she gets some info on Gyrick and Trask. But we cut back to Scott asking the UN for help, and they're scared because they think Trask started a war between normals and mutants, and they don't want to team up on the mutant side because they think that it will be a bad look. And it's like, you know, we didn't ask for this war, but now we have to be the villains in this because we're mutants and we're not like you. So like, that's a huge thing going on right now. It's mutants versus the regular people, and the regular people are kind of backing Trask and Gyrick, and even this new big bad that we find by the end of this episode. We'll talk about that by the end, but it's wild, right? Like, I cannot wait for this 3-arc finale. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it seems like it's going to be wild. But Scott then gets comforted by Jean a little bit after getting turned down from whoever he was talking to. I don't know if it was the president or some secretary of state or something like that, but he pretty much was like letting him down easy, and Scott kind of gave him some attitude, and he was like, sorry son, you know. And then Jean kind of talks to him a little bit, and then they go with the team to Genosha to start cleaning up the rubble and trying to help and see who they can find and that type of thing. They get off the plane, and Scott and Jean go off, and then the reporter that we saw earlier in the series, which in the comics the reporter and Beast kind of have a little thing going on, and it doesn't end up working out because she gets accused of bestiality, which, like, he is kind of an animal, but, like, you know, let Beast be happy, whatever. I'm cool with it. But she goes, you want to go for a walk? Instead of, like, you know, with her camera guy, she kind of turns him back. Hey, go back to the van. I'm going to go talk to Hank here, Beastie Boy. And then we cut back to a wild sequence. We cut back to Rogue still on her rampage, and we get her and Captain America, right? And I thought this was going to be, you know, from the brief little trailer shot we saw of his shield, I thought, oh wow, Rogue and him are going to start fighting. But no, she's looking for information, and so is he, and that led him to the same place she was looking, right? So he walks into, like, what looks like a shack in the middle of the wilderness, in a snow-covered wilderness, and then, you know, touches a radio, and then they end up going into a facility down in the basement that was hidden. And I'm like, ooh, that's really cool, but is this like some Hydra shit? Like, how did Cap know how this worked? And you know, everyone seems to be gone before he got there, so, like, you know, everyone looked like they cleared out in a hurry, probably because they knew someone like Rogue was out there smashing, coming to get them. But she talks to Cap, gets the information she needs. She's holding Cap's shield. That's kind of cool. She gets the info about Gyrick, and Cap's hoping that if you get Gyrick, he'll lead to Trask, and Gyrick is in Mexico, and he's going to get his team and go there. And she's like, well, I'll play the clip of what she says in a second because it's great, but we're sitting there like, okay, Mexico, Cap's team? Wait a second, whoa, what team is he referring to? Is he talking about, like, the Howling Commandos, or is he talking about, like, a 90s version of the Avengers? Either way, I'm kind of, you know, curious to see if Cap comes back and this is like an Avengers thing, or is Cap with the Avengers, but now because of what Rogue did, he's going to be angry. But let's see what Rogue did. Let's play the clip real quick.
In Mexico City. Once I get the thumbs up, I'll lead my team to Mexico to apprehend Gyrick.
I reckon we nab Gyrick now before our mystery boys move him again.
This uniform shows up in Mexico bashing heads in with you. It sends a message.
Damn right, that you stand with mutants. Unless you don't now.
I'll do this by the book, Rogue. Right now, my hands are tied.
Well, if your hands are tied, you won't be needing this.
Ooh. Ooh. Rogue is on a righteous path right now, and she friggin', well, if you're not gonna stand with the X-Men, then you're not gonna be needing this. Takes away his shield, bashes through the wall, and yeets it into oblivion, right? I am dying because I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm like, please, please cut to a shot of Captain America just kind of, where is that shield? You know, he's just like been walking for hours trying to find this shield in the middle of a snowstorm, like in a mountainside somewhere. Like, she threw it so far that it kind of disappeared into frame, right? So you're just implying that she just yeeted this thing a mile. Almost like one of those bullies when you're a kid takes your basketball and throws it over the fence, and it's like, what the fuck? You know, or takes your ball and goes home with it, and you're like, what the fuck, man? But after Rogue throws the shield a friggin' quarter mile, we cut back to Jubilee and Roberto talking about going to see his mom, and Roberto says something along the lines of, man, I don't know if I should come out to her, because it just seems like we're rubbing it right in her face, kind of like, you know, and it's kind of parallel to, like, you know, coming out as gay to your family, like they did in X2, where Bobby's coming out to his family, and they kind of make it sound like he's coming out as gay. Well, have you tried not to be gay? You know, like, and but they changed the word gay for mutant, but they're very similar parallels, especially from those movies where they're kind of trying to do the same thing here, and how they're segregating these people of mutants, you know, and I don't know, I'm Team Mutant. Ooh, and then we get a great line where we cut back to Beast talking to Mrs. Tilby, the reporter, and it's not really going well, because they're walking, they're seeing the rubble, they're seeing people hurt, and she says something along the lines of, man, we can't, normal people will never be safe around mutants, and will never feel safe because they're afraid, and will never not be afraid because you guys have power, that type of thing. And Beast looks at a broken statue of Charles Xavier, and he's like, maybe Charles's dream was too short-sighted. Maybe we should have never asked for your tolerance in the first place. And she's like, that's not what I meant. And he's like, oh, forgive me, Mrs. Tilby, begging for your apologies. I should not be begging for your tolerance was our first mistake. I do not want to waste any more of your tolerance, Mrs. Tilby. And he walks away, and I'm like, ooh, so Mrs. Tilby and Beast ain't good now, right? They're not really together, and he kind of is fed up with them right now, and he's going to kind of hopefully let the Beast out a little bit more, and less Dr. Beast and more Beastie Beast, you know what I'm saying? I'd like that. After we cut away from Beast, Rogue pulls up on Gyrick, and it's not a prison. It's more of like a resort, she says. And she, you know, pushes Gyrick up against the wall, and she's like, you're not gonna get Jean to hack into my brain again. That ain't happening. And she goes, oh, honey, that ain't what we're doing here. She takes off her glove and touches him, and you see the lights start to flicker, and, you know, shit's happening, and all of a sudden he starts screaming, and they're cutting all over the place, and it's like, you know, you can tell that she's really powerful, but there's also something going on with Gyrick. Like, maybe somebody had a control over his mind, because as she's, like, tapping into him, a vision of a purple image, and then like a master mold, and then like a Nimrod, I believe it's called, is like what is flashes real quick, and then all of a sudden cuts away, and you're like, oh shit. And then we cut back to Jean and Scott finding somebody in the rubble, and we can see that clip right here. They bring up Emma Frost.
Extraordinary. Diamond transmutation has never been one of Emma's abilities. Perhaps a dormant mutation triggered by duress?
I've always done well. Under pressure.
Oh, that's a quirky little line. I've always done well under pressure, right? And you should see Scott starts to cry at the end of that clip. He was hoping it was Madeline. I think Madeline's dead right now, so like that's kind of sucks, because that was, you know, it's not Jean, but it is Jean. It's a clone of Jean, but it's Madeline Pryor. But it's Madeline Pryor's the father of Cable, his son, right? So Scott's got conflicted emotions, but he's also now standing over a diamond Emma Frost. Like earlier, we saw her as just a blonde. We had saw Emma Frost in First Class in her diamond form, and that was kind of cool. And, you know, just kind of cool how they tied that in, and Beast says that little line of like, maybe a dormant mutation. And it's like, oh, okay. And she's like, throws in that quirky little line. She still has her lipstick, which I find funny too, but throws in that quirky little line of, I've always done well under pressure, right? And diamonds are made under pressure. So, yeah, cute, quirky little cute line, but also, you know, factual. After they save Emma Frost, they head back to the X-Jet, and they get a message from Trask telling them to come to Madripoor, which is like, oh, okay. And while the team goes to Madripoor, Jubilee and Roberto go to talk to his mom. At first, she seems cool, but then at the end, she kind of like chugs a glass of wine, and then she's like, oh, okay, we thought it was your secret to hold. She always knew he was a mutant. She was like, 4 of our houses have burnt down mysteriously. We hoped you were a mutant, but at the same time, it should be a secret, right? Like, all of a sudden, it turns from being a supportive mother to, this should be a secret. We should keep your identity secret. We should be careful who we tell, where you go, who you're with, what your image is, you know, and all that. And you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Why his mom was cool, now she's not. But then we cut to Nightcrawler finding Rogue. Rogue was, you know, last we seen her, she was tapping into Gyrick's brain. something happened in between there. I don't know if we'll ever see that, but I'm hoping maybe that has something to do with the main villain that we see at the end of this episode. So maybe we'll get to see a flashback of what happened to Rogue during this brief time where we didn't see how she got to the curb. But all we know is that Nightcrawler finds her. Nightcrawler is her adopted sibling, right? Because Rogue's mom is Mystique, right? And I think that's adopted mom, because that's what she says, is adopted sibling. And I believe Nightcrawler's parents are Mystique and Azazel, which is kind of cool. But I love just like between the eulogy lines at the beginning and then his comforting lines to Rogue here, right? Like this whole episode, I was like, damn, okay, Nightcrawler's a beast, but he's also just like a good ass guy, right? He hugs her, and I love how he's blue with the yellow eyes, but he's got like 3 fingers or 4 fingers, and he's got the white gloves. I really love the look of Nightcrawler. I've always been one of my favorite characters. But as he's comforting her, she sees that she's even more not alone. Like, she thought it was just him, but Jean walks up, touches her shoulder, comforting her, and she turns around and sees that all of her X-Men friends are there. It's Jean, Scott, Morph, Wolverine, Beast. You know, I love that they're all there for her, and that's just a sweet shot. Then we cut to a crazy shot of Gyrick in his bed waking up to somebody walking over him in his room, and he's like, "Sir, it worked exactly how it went down exactly how you said it would. Exactly how you dreamt it." And it's like, dreamt it? Okay, so is this guy a future guy? Is he a wizard? What's his deal? I have no idea really the background of his character, but I know his name is Bastion. Not Sebastian, Bastion. And he is like a time traveler, I guess, but he does some vicious shit. And as like Gyrick's coming out of his like, you know, a weakened state, I guess, and he's like in his bed and he's hooked up to like these monitors, he walks up and instead of like pillow over the head suffocating him, he just hands over the mouth, kills this guy, and we watch him kill Gyrick, and he just kind of like, you know, it cuts away, and then we cut back to the team showing up in Madripoor to Trask's facility. They see a guy with a uniform that says OZT, and she goes, this is the same type of uniforms that they had at Gyrick's compound down in Mexico, but now they're in Madripoor. So what are the same uniforms doing in either place? So what is OZT? I believe that stands for Operation Zero Tolerance. The last 3 episodes are going to be called Tolerance is Extinction. So maybe it's going to be X-Men versus these OZT guys. Not quite sure, but they show up in Trask lab. They start seeing technology. And then we see Morph go, maybe we ask poor man's Oppenheimer? And we look, and Trask is like standing on like the edge of the building ready to kill himself and jump. And you're like, whoa, okay. And then we get this badass clip, right? He's about to jump and Rogue catches him, and let's play the clip.
I have nothing.
Same sugar.
Oh no. She drops his ass? Oh my god. Oh. And the way she just like looks over him like, yeah, she's happy she killed him.
Rogue, what have you done? What we all wanted to do.
Oh, I love Wolverine.
Is this who you are now?
That maniac killed Remy and thousands of people on Genosha. That rotten piece of scum, but a good man, my man.
Oh! So at the end of that clip, right, we thought it was going to be one way. I thought we were going to get more of Rogue just kind of like, you know, grieving and them being like, you can't kill this guy, right? And it just all of a sudden says, terminate mutants, boom! And the whole place where they're standing, it just blows up. But I'm like, holy Christ, she's holding him. And then she like kind of, he goes, I have nothing. And you just see the shot of her mouth. She goes, same sugar. So she has nothing too. So there's no need to keep this conversation going. She drops Trask. And then she's standing there looking down. I'm like, Rogue is so badass. But then Trask, his body reanimates, and he kind of is pale, but you see these like purple lines. His eyes are now glowing, so maybe this is the bright eyes the episode is referring to. But wait for it, we'll get to bright eyes and what that actually probably means. But Trask, body reanimates, you know, head twists around, and all of a sudden he is a Sentinel Prime, like a human android Sentinel, which is like super dangerous because he's like, you know, deadly now. He's like literally starts wiping people out. It's pretty wild. He's going, terminate mutants, but like the bomb went off, and then we cut to this shot.
Summers! Jean, you get the building.
Wolverine, Summers! Scott gets the debris, Rogue grabs the building so it doesn't crush the people below. I love Jean. Oh! Jean just straight up telekinesis yeets a building over buildings into the river, like, you know, safely. She's not only smart, but she's safe. I love that. She's a fucking beast. Then we cut to a great, like, team-up shot, and they're like, X-Men, take them down. And we get morphing into a great character we'll talk about in a second, but let's play the clip.
X-Men, take him down.
Take him down. And we get a Quicksilver. Morph goes into Quicksilver, starts punching. Oh! Morph. Oh, I love how much Wolverine really cares for Morph. Morph's like one of his only real true friends. He turns into Quicksilver, right? And Quicksilver is Wanda's sister, which is Magneto's kids, right? So, like, hopefully maybe Wanda comes in this season, I don't know. But it definitely confirms that she's in this universe, because if Morph can turn into him, which it also makes me think that Morph might be the most powerful character, right? Like, if he can just turn into anyone and get their power set, he's got a pretty damn good power. But we cut to another shot of Trask and Jean fighting. Let's play that clip. Ooh, telekinesis. Uh-oh. And they kind of like fireball into each other. That's kind of really interesting. Like just how it all happens. I believe that Cyan also said Vista Corp in the background. I don't really know what that's from. But Trask ends up pinning down Scott, and he goes, how does it feel to be abandoned by the future? And then we see a grenade bounce, and you're like, wait, what? Who threw that? And then all of a sudden it goes off, and, you know, Scott is okay because it just attacks Sentinels. And you hear a voice, and he goes, the best way to beat Sentinels is a radio or whatever, that magnetized grenade or whatever he calls it. And all of a sudden you see a metal arm, which looks really good, and the blue and the X-Men logo, and he walks out of like the shadows, and it's Cable, you know, with a little bit of fire bristling in front of him. And Scott's like, Cable, what are you doing here? And Jean kind of taps into his mind and goes, oh, Nathan? And Cable can feel her in his head, and he goes, you're not her, right? Because she's not Madeline. So confirming that this is actually Jean. And she's, you know, cares for Nathan, but technically not really his mom. But Scott is most definitely his dad. And he goes, let's save the family reunion, Dad. And you're like, oh, like, come on. I really wanted them to be boys. But then we cut, right? And I'm not even actually sure what happens there. I don't know if when the next episode comes to, are we still going to be in Madripoor and Cable's still going to be talking to Scott? Or did Cable get sucked back? I don't... That part of the episode is escaping me right now. But comment below, where do you think we see Cable next? Because I believe this episode was Bright Eyes referring to Cable's big brown eyes, that they keep, that's how they like identify that he's Nathan. But that also made me think about like Deadpool 2 and how Josh Brolin is Cable, and I'm like, wait a second, so you're telling me the same dude that was Scott Summers, Cyclops in those original X-Men movie, Josh Brolin's his kid with the metal arm with the that's kind of awesome. You know, and he's got like the same kind of Scott haircut in that movie. But I never knew that, right? Like I knew Cable, right? Metal arm, time travel, that type of shit. But I didn't know he was the son of Scott Jean clone. You know, I didn't know that whole part of it, which is just cool. I love how things expand. But then we cut back to the end of the episode, and Bastion reveals a huge, huge secret. He puts on a record. I believe it's Purple People Eaters. Which just reminded me of the movie Nope, and that guy's deep voice going, Purple People Eater, Purple People Eater. Then Bastion and Mr. Sinister are talking, right? So you can kind of see how Bastion's been the main villain the whole time, right? We thought it was going to be Mr. Sinister earlier in the season. I didn't know if Mr. Sinister was going to be the big bad the whole time, but it seems that Mr. Sinister was working maybe for or with Bastion. But they know that Charles is alive, which they've been telling everyone that Charles is dead. So Charles is maybe going to come back, right, from the last episode. Maybe he's back the next episode. Maybe Charles and Storm come back the next episode. That would be really cool to see that my two powerful-ass mutants come back. Charles with his little telekinesis, you know, pointing. And Storm, heeding my commands, wins attack. You know, that type of shit. Then we cut to Bastion, and he puts on that record of the Purple People Eater or whatever, and he starts to shave Magneto, revealing that Magneto's alive, and he's just like taped up. He's got the collar inhibitor, power inhibitor thing around his neck, so maybe Bastion helped create this alongside Forge and that other dude from the original series. But he gives him like a little shave, and I'm like, ooh. Ooh, so Bastion has our boy Magneto. He's going to try and brainwash Magneto, probably, maybe, to work for him. But either way, he might, you know, he's got to be using Magneto for something. Maybe just to get underneath the skin of Rogue. But Rogue, once she sees that Magneto's still alive, that's going to blow her mind. But it sucks that Gambit's probably really dead. But I don't know, maybe some time traveling shenanigans. Maybe Gambit can come back. Because, like, look how beastie this shirt is. The name's Gambit. Mon ami, remember it. You know, like, come on, he had great lines, great voice. Mon ami, cher, right? Like, I've been saying Mon ami way too much since watching this show. But comment below, what do you think of this episode, Bright Eyes? Where do you think this is heading us into the final 3-episode arc of the finale, Tolerance's extinction? This show has been awesome. What have your thoughts been on X-Men 97 so far? What are your thoughts on this episode? If you want a shirt like this, check out nerdriot.shop. That's not a paid promotion, but I buy enough of their t-shirts, I might as well tell you where I'm getting them from. But these motherfuckers, they keep coming out with shirts. And I'm like, I really need to stop. And then the next design they come out with is just really cool. So I'm like, you know what, it's only 20 bucks, 30 bucks. Fuck it, I'll send it. You know, I'll get the t-shirt. And then it gives me an excuse to wear these shirts on here, you know. So shout out Nerd Riot. Shout out the people over at New Rockstars for making these badass shirts. And thank you guys for watching. My name is Big Cam. You can follow my other social medias in the links down and below. So like this video, smash that subscribe button, hit that bell so you don't miss next week's X-Men 97 breakdown coming out on Thursdays. Comically Boston coming out on Mondays. Movie reviews in between. Stay tuned. We got a lot of movie reviews coming your way. And I will see you beautiful people in the next video. Peace.